It started the day he walked into our senior English class. No one noticed him at first, just another transfer student trying to survive the last semester before graduation. But something about the way he carried himself, quiet yet defiant, caught my attention. His name was Ethan Cole. Tall, dark hair that fell over his eyes, a sketchbook always clutched to his chest like a shield. The teacher told him to take the empty seat beside me. He nodded once and sat down without saying a word. But that single moment, the sound of his chair scraping against the floor, the way his eyes met mine for half a second, changed everything. He wasn't like the others. He didn't laugh at the jokes the football guys made behind my back. He didn't join in when people whispered my name with a sneer. He just looked at me, not with pity, not with curiosity, just saw me. From that day on, something unspoken began between us. Shared glances during lectures, small smiles that no one else caught. I didn't know what it was back then, interest, friendship, or something much more dangerous. All I knew was that for the first time in months, I wanted to go to school. I wanted to sit next to him. I wanted to understand why his silence felt louder than anyone else's voice. But in a place where reputation was everything, getting close to Ethan was the kind of risk that could ruin you. And still, I couldn't stop, because sometimes the people who walk into your life quietly are the ones who make the loudest impact. Stay until the end, because what happened after that first day changed both of our lives forever. If you've ever met someone who made you see the world differently, this story is for you. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this isn't just a high school story. It's about finding courage where love isn't supposed to exist. Senior year had already become something I was just trying to survive. The same faces, the same noise, the same routine that felt like an endless loop of whispers, smirks, and the kind of laughter that never reached you. It just hit you. I'd learned to stay invisible. Headphones in, eyes down, lunch under the bleachers where no one bothered me. That was my peace. Or at least the closest thing to it, until the morning he walked into class. It was late September, the kind of California morning that was already too bright. The sunlight pouring through the blinds like it was mocking everyone who still had another year trapped in high school. Mr. Langley, our English teacher, was already halfway through his lecture when the door opened. Every head turned. He stood there in the doorway, tall, lean, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans that looked one size too big. His backpack was ripped on one side, the strap patched with duct tape. There was a faint bruise under his jaw, barely visible, and I remember thinking, he looks like he's been somewhere hard. "This is Ethan Cole," Mr. Langley said. "Transferred from Ridgeview High." The name meant nothing to anyone, but it echoed in my chest like I should remember it. Mr. Langley scanned the room, eyes landing on the empty chair beside me. "Take the seat next to Ryan." And just like that, my quiet world shifted. He crossed the room without looking at anyone. His sneakers squeaked against the tile floor. He didn't smile, didn't say hello, didn't even seem nervous. He just sat down, the sound of the chair scraping the ground somehow louder than anything else in the room. Mr. Langley went back to talking about Shakespeare. But I didn't hear a word. I felt Ethan's presence next to me, like static in the air. He smelled faintly like soap and rain. His hands were ink-stained, the edges of his fingers smudged with pencil graphite. He had a sketchbook half-tucked in his backpack, corners bent and pages worn. For a while I kept my eyes on my notes. But I could feel him glancing sideways, like he was studying me in secret. When the bell finally rang, I started packing up fast, but his voice stopped me. "You always write that much." I froze. No one ever talked to me unless it was to mock me. I looked up. He was smiling, not fully, just enough to make his eyes lighter. "I guess," I said. "It helps me focus." He nodded. "You've got neat handwriting." It wasn't what I expected him to say. "Thanks," I muttered. He slipped the strap of his backpack over one shoulder. "See you tomorrow, Ryan." He knew my name. I hadn't told him, but he'd remembered from the teacher's roll call. It was a small thing, but in a place where people acted like you didn't exist, it meant everything. Over the next week, he kept sitting next to me, always quiet, always sketching when the teacher wasn't looking. One day, curiosity got the better of me. "What do you draw?" I asked. He tilted his sketchbook so I could see. It was a portrait of Mr. Langley, mid-sentence, chalk in hand. But it wasn't just a drawing. It looked alive. Every shadow, every wrinkle, every movement was captured. "You're really good," I said, honestly amazed. He shrugged, pretending not to care. "It's just something I do to think." That became our thing. Small conversations between classes, quick glances across the room. No one seemed to notice at first. But in high school, people notice everything eventually. By the third week, whispers started. "Why's he always with him?" Someone muttered behind us during lunch. "He's weird too," another voice added. "Maybe they're, whatever." I felt my stomach twist. The words hit me like they always did. Sharp, mocking, familiar. I waited for Ethan to pull away, to stop sitting with me, but he didn't. Instead, that afternoon, he found me behind the bleachers. My usual spot. The one no one else ever bothered to go. He stood there, hands in his pockets. "You always hide back here?" "Sometimes," I said. "It's quiet," he nodded slowly. "I get that." We sat in silence for a while, the sound of wind brushing against the metal bleachers above us. Then he said, "People talk a lot here. They always do," I said. "They'll move on to someone else soon." He shook his head. "I don't care what they say about me, but I hate that they talk about you." That made me look at him. "Why?" He met my eyes, steady and calm. "Because they don't know you." Something tightened in my chest. No one had ever said something like that to me before. He looked away, kicking at the dirt. "I transferred because people at my old school talked too, about me, about things that weren't true." "What kind of things?" I asked. He hesitated. "That I liked guys." The words hung between us, heavy and fragile. I swallowed. "Was it true?" He glanced at me then, his eyes searching mine like he was trying to read the answer before saying it. "Does it matter?" "No," I said quietly. "Not to me," he smiled, a real one this time. Small, soft, but real. "Good." We sat there until the sun started to set, both of us pretending we weren't afraid of what people would say tomorrow, because I already knew what was coming. High school doesn't like quiet rebellions. And sitting next to Ethan Cole was about to make me the loudest one of all. By Monday, it was like someone had switched the lights off at school. Nobody spoke to us directly anymore, but the air was heavy with something worse than insults. Avoidance. Teachers glanced away when I raised my hand. People changed seats when we walked into class. The space around us became a circle no one dared to cross. Ethan acted calm, but I could see it. The twitch in his jaw, the way he clenched his pencil until it cracked. Every day that week, something small happened. A shove in the hallway, a slur muttered just loud enough to sting. He never reacted. Until Friday, it started in gym class. The locker room buzzed with the kind of fake laughter that always comes before trouble. Coach stepped out for a moment and the noise changed. Jake and two of his friends cornered Ethan near the benches. "Still hanging with your boyfriend, Cole?" Jake sneered. "What's it like being the school's charity project?" Ethan didn't answer. He just kept tying his shoes calm. That made Jake angrier. He snatched Ethan's sketchbook from his bag and flipped it open. "Look at this!" Jake laughed. "He draws him. He actually draws his little boyfriend." The other guys laughed. Pages scattered across the floor. Portraits, sketches, private moments. One of them was of me, asleep in class, head resting on my arms. Ethan stood up fast. "Put it down," Jake smirked. "Or what? You'll draw me crying?" The punch came before anyone saw it coming. A sharp crack of knuckles against bone. Jake stumbled backward, blood blooming from his lip. The laughter stopped instantly. By the time Coach returned, Jake was yelling that Ethan had snapped. The office suspended him on the spot. I waited for Ethan outside the principal's office. When he came out, his face was blank. "Not angry, empty. They called my mom," he said. "She's coming to get me. What did they say?" "That I'm a threat." He laughed bitterly. "I guess drawings are dangerous now." I wanted to say something to make it better, but I couldn't. The whole world felt unfair in ways words couldn't fix. When his mom's car pulled up, he turned to me. "They'll probably expel me, They can't, I said. He looked at me for a long moment. They can, and they will. He didn't come to school the next week. Not Monday, not Tuesday. By Wednesday, rumors started again. Some said he'd transferred, others that his mom sent him to live with relatives. The silence in the seat beside me was louder than any of the whispers. That Friday, I found myself standing in front of his house after school. I didn't even remember deciding to go there. It was a small place on the edge of town, paint peeling, a rusted mailbox. His mom opened the door. "You must be Ryan," she said softly. I nodded. She hesitated. "He's not doing great, but he'll want to see you." Ethan was in his room, sitting on the floor, surrounded by torn paper. He'd ripped every drawing in half. The walls were bare. When he saw me, he tried to smile. Hey, I said quietly. "You didn't answer my texts," he shrugged. "Didn't know what to say." "You could have said anything." He picked up a torn sketch, one of me, and stared at it. "They said I can't come back until next semester." "For everyone's safety," I swallowed. "You hit one guy." "Yeah," he said. "But guys like me aren't allowed to fight back." The words hit hard. He wasn't wrong. He dropped the sketch. "I thought if I kept my head down, it'd be different here. But it's the same everywhere." I sat down beside him. "Then maybe we stop hiding altogether." He looked at me, tired but curious. "And do what? Start a revolution?" "Maybe just start by not letting them define us," I said. He laughed quietly. "You always sound like a movie." "Maybe that's because I need a happy ending," I said. He turned toward me, eyes softer now. "You think we get one?" "I think we have to make it ourselves." For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "You shouldn't be here. They'll make your life hell for this." "They already did," I said. "So what else can they take?" He stared at me, like he was trying to memorize my face. "You're braver than you look." I smiled faintly. "You're softer than you pretend." That got a laugh out of him, small, genuine, real. He leaned back against the wall. "You really want to keep seeing me after all this?" "I don't want to," I said, grinning slightly. "I need to." Something shifted between us then. No noise, no words, just understanding. He reached for my hand slowly, like he was afraid I might pull away. I didn't. Our fingers fit together, shaky but certain. He exhaled, a sound somewhere between relief and fear. "You know this doesn't get easier, right?" "I don't want easy," I said. "I want real." He squeezed my hand, eyes glinting under the dim light. "Then you've got it." When I left that night, the world felt heavier and lighter all at once. The next morning I woke to a text from him, "Ethan, meet me tomorrow night." The field, midnight, my heart pounded. It was the same place everything had fallen apart, and maybe the only place it could start again. The following night the sky was bruised with clouds, the air cold enough to sting. He was already there, sitting in the grass with his sketchbook. "You started drawing again," I said. He nodded. "Couldn't stop." "Some things don't stay broken." He tore a page from the book and handed it to me. It was a new drawing, me standing under the stadium lights, head tilted toward the sky. Across the bottom, he'd written one line, "They can't erase what's real." I looked at him. "What does this mean?" He smiled faintly. "That I'm done running." Before I could reply, a sound came from behind us, footsteps, laughter. Jake and his friends again. "Look who's back," Jake said. "Couldn't stay away, huh?" Ethan's shoulders tensed. But before he could stand, I stepped in front of him. "Leave him alone," I said. Jake laughed. "Or what?" My voice shook, but I didn't move. "Or I'll make sure everyone sees exactly who you are." For the first time, Jake looked uncertain. Maybe it was the way Ethan stood beside me now, not hiding, not scared. Maybe it was the fact that fear didn't work anymore. They left. Just like that, Ethan turned to me, disbelief in his eyes. "You really weren't kidding about not being scared." "Not anymore," I said. He smiled, eyes glistening. "Then maybe this is our happy ending after all." I looked up at the empty bleachers, the silent field, the bruised sky. "Maybe," I whispered. "Or maybe it's just the start." By Monday morning, the whispers had already spread. I could feel them following me down the hallway, that quiet, sharp kind of silence people use when they're pretending not to look at you. It started small, a few sideways glances, a few snickers. Then came the messages written on my locker in permanent marker. Freak, lovebirds, stay away. The ink bled down the metal like bruises. I wiped it off with a wet paper towel before Ethan got there. The last thing I wanted was for him to see it. But of course, he did. He walked up behind me, reading what was left of the smudged letters. "Who did that?" "Doesn't matter," I said, tossing the paper towel in the trash. "They'll get bored soon." He stepped closer. "You shouldn't let them get away with that." "What do you want me to do, Ethan? Write back?" He didn't answer. His jaw tightened, the muscles in his neck flexing. For a moment I thought he was going to punch something, or someone. Instead, he just said quietly, "I'm not going to let them do that to you." I looked at him, startled by how certain he sounded. "Ethan, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do," he said, and the way he said it made me believe him. At lunch, we sat together like always. The cafeteria felt different now. Every conversation a little too quiet, every laugh a little too loud. A few tables over, a group of guys from the football team kept glancing our way. I recognized them, the kind of guys who thought cruelty was a sport. "Guess they finally found each other," one of them said. The table erupted in laughter. Ethan froze, his hands clenched around his fork. "Hey," I said quickly, leaning in. "Don't, they're not worth it." He didn't move for a few seconds. Then, slowly, he set the fork down. "You shouldn't have to live like this." "It's high school," I said. "Everyone survives something." He looked at me then, his voice low and steady. "Some of us shouldn't have to just survive." Before I could respond, he stood up, walked straight to the football players' table, and said something I couldn't hear. The laughter stopped instantly. The entire cafeteria turned to watch. One of the guys, Jake, their captain, stood too, towering over him. "You got something to say, Cole?" Jake sneered. Ethan didn't flinch. "Yeah. You think you're brave when it's 4 against 1. Try picking on someone who'll actually fight back." The tension was thick enough to choke on. Jake took a step closer, but Ethan didn't back down. The whole room waited. The teachers, the students, everyone. Finally, Jake smirked. "Whatever, man. Not worth it." He shoved past Ethan and walked off, muttering curses. Ethan came back to our table like nothing happened. But when he sat down, his hands were still shaking. "You didn't have to do that," I said. "Yeah," he replied, eyes fixed on the table. "I did. After that day, people stopped mocking me to my face. But the whispers didn't stop. They just got quieter, meaner, more poisonous. Some kids moved their desks farther away. Others stopped talking to me altogether. But Ethan never moved. Every class, every lunch, every hallway, he was still there. One afternoon after school, we were working on a group project in the library. The light from the window fell across his face, turning his eyes a deep shade of gold. He was sketching again, absent-minded as always. "What are you drawing?" I asked. He turned the page around. It was me, sitting at the desk, head tilted, staring out the window. He'd captured everything. The way my hair fell across my forehead, the tired slouch of my shoulders. But there was something else in it too, something tender. I stared at it, speechless. "Sorry," he said quickly. "It's weird, I know." "No," I said, my throat dry. "It's beautiful." He smiled faintly. "You don't think it's too much?" I met his eyes. "I think it's honest." That silence came again, that thick, dangerous quiet that made every heartbeat louder. He looked like he wanted to say something, but didn't. Then the librarian called out, "5 minutes until closing." He closed his sketchbook, stood, and said softly, "Walk you home?" I nodded. The walk was long and slow. The sun was setting, turning the street gold. Neither of us said much until we reached the corner near my house. He stopped. "You know they'll keep talking, right?" "I know. And you're okay with that?" I shrugged. "Not really. But what else can I do?" He looked at me for a long time before saying, "You could stop pretending it doesn't bother you." I let out a shaky laugh. "And what? Break down in front of them? Give them more reasons to laugh? He shook his head. No, just be real. You don't owe anyone an act. Easy for you to say, I said, voice sharper than I meant. You're not the one they write about on lockers. He stepped closer, his expression softening. You think they didn't write about me at Ridgeview? I froze. He looked away, his voice barely above a whisper. They found out about me and Tyler. We were just friends, mostly. But one rumor was enough. It got bad. Real bad. What happened? I asked. He hesitated. He couldn't take it. He switched schools. His parents pulled him out. My chest tightened. And you? I ran too, he said simply. But you can't outrun shame that isn't yours. He looked up then, eyes glimmering in the fading light. I don't want that to happen again. Not to you. Not because of me. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell him that being near him didn't ruin me. It made me feel seen. So instead, I said the only thing that felt true. Then stay. He looked at me, surprised. Stay next to me, I said quietly, even if it gets bad again. He didn't answer with words. He just nodded, slow, deliberate, like a promise. And as we stood there, the last light of the day fading between us, I knew something irreversible had begun. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person refusing to walk away, and suddenly the world you thought was against you doesn't feel so impossible anymore. By the next week, things had gotten quieter at school, but not in a peaceful way. It was the silence before something bad, like the air right before a storm breaks. People stopped laughing out loud. They just stared, whispered, waited. Ethan and I kept sitting together. Every day, same seats. Same tension. Same rhythm of pretending we didn't notice the stares. Then, one Thursday morning, something changed. When I got to my locker, there was a folded piece of paper taped to it. My name written in thick black ink. I pulled it off, expecting another insult. But when I opened it, it just said 3 words. You should run. I froze. I looked around, but the hallway was full of kids acting normal, laughing, walking to class. I tried to shake it off, but something in my gut felt wrong. When I got to English, Ethan was already there. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. What's wrong? I asked. He hesitated, then said, nothing, just tired. But there was something else in his tone, like he was trying to protect me from something. Halfway through class, it happened. Mr. Langley was reading from The Great Gatsby when a sound burst through the speakers. Someone had hacked into the school's intercom system. At first there was static, then laughter, then a voice. My voice, or rather a recording of it. It was from the night before when Ethan had called me after midnight. We talked for an hour about everything. About him, about me, about how hard it was to pretend we didn't care what people thought, and near the end, I'd said it, quietly, almost like I was afraid of the words themselves. I think I like you, Ethan. The sound of my voice echoed through every hallway, every classroom, every locker, and then silence. The world fell apart in seconds. Laughter erupted down the hall, faint but rising. Someone in the back of the classroom muttered, "Holy crap." Mr. Langley tried to shut it off, but the damage was done. My chest tightened. My hands shook. I looked at Ethan, but he wasn't looking at me. He was staring straight ahead, his jaw locked, fists clenched. When the bell rang, I didn't move. I couldn't. My whole body felt numb. Ethan grabbed my arm. "Ryan, come on. We have to get out of here." We walked out together, ignoring the stares, the laughter, the whispers that chased us down the hallway. I could hear my name, his name, twisted and poisoned by other people's voices. Outside, behind the gym, I finally stopped. How did they even get that recording? He shook his head. I don't know. But I'm gonna find out. Ethan, no, he said, his voice sharp. This isn't on you. They did this to both of us. I wanted to believe him, but all I could feel was humiliation, like someone had stripped me open in front of the entire world. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing. You think I don't know what this feels like? This is exactly what they did to me before I left Ridgeview. That made me stop cold. They recorded you too? He nodded, eyes burning. Me and Tyler, they found one of our messages. They played it during morning announcements. Everyone heard. My stomach dropped. That's why you transferred. He nodded again. Yeah, and now it's happening all over again. He turned away, punching the brick wall once, hard enough to make his knuckles bleed. I'm so stupid. I should have known better than to let anyone close. I stepped forward, gently grabbing his wrist. Don't say that. He looked at me then, eyes full of pain, fear, and something raw that went deeper than anger. You don't get it, he said, voice trembling. You're gonna hate me for this. Everyone will. I could never hate you. He stared at me for a long moment. Then why do I feel like I just ruined your life? You didn't, I said quietly. They did. And we can't let them win. The principal called us both into the office that afternoon. The school was investigating the incident. They promised to find whoever was responsible, but we both knew they wouldn't. Schools like ours didn't protect people like us. They protected their image. My parents were called in too. That night, sitting in the living room under the cold glare of the ceiling light, my mom asked, "Is it true?" I couldn't speak. My dad crossed his arms. "Ryan, answer your mother." My voice came out small. "Yeah, it's true." The silence that followed was worse than shouting. Finally, my mom said, "You're still our son." But my dad stood up and walked out of the room. That's when it hit me, how love can feel like both safety and rejection in the same breath. Ethan texted me later that night. "Ethan, meet me at the field." 10 p.m. I went. The football field was empty, the bleachers shining silver under the moonlight. He was standing near the goalpost, hoodie pulled up, hands in his pockets. "I'm sorry," he said as soon as I got close. "For what?" "For not protecting you sooner." "You didn't do this," he shook his head. "I let them get to us. I thought I could just ignore it, but they always find a way." He turned toward me, his face softening. "If you want me to stay away, I will." I didn't even hesitate. "Don't you dare!" He blinked, surprised. "I don't care what they say," I said, stepping closer. "You're the only person here who's ever really seen me. If they want to destroy me for that, fine. But I'm not losing you too." He exhaled, the tension in his shoulders melting. "You shouldn't have to fight for me." "Maybe not," I said. "But I want to." He looked at me for a long moment before whispering, "You're braver than I am." "Not really," I said. "I'm just tired of being scared." And before I could think, before the fear could stop me, I reached out and took his hand. He didn't pull away. The world was quiet again, not the cruel kind of quiet, but the kind that felt like peace. He squeezed my hand once, then said softly, "They'll come after us again." "I know," I said. "But next time they'll have to face both of us." He smiled, small, tired, but real, and under the pale glow of the stadium lights, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible anymore. On Monday morning, the entire school felt different. The same corridors that once echoed with whispers were now quiet in a new way, a nervous, watching silence. By first period, everyone had seen the video. Someone had recorded the confrontation on the football field. Me, standing in front of Jake, Ethan beside me, refusing to back down. It had gone viral across the school overnight. The comments were split right down the middle, half of them calling us brave, the other half saying we'd gone too far. But for the first time, I didn't care. I walked into class expecting the usual stares. Instead, nobody said a word. Even Jake's friends looked away when I passed. Maybe they'd finally realized that we weren't going to disappear quietly. When I sat down, Ethan was already there. He gave me a half smile, the kind that said we made it through the storm. "Famous again," he murmured. I smirked. "You love the drama." He leaned closer, whispering, "Only when I win." By lunch, teachers were calling it the incident. The principal wanted a meeting. The guidance counselor wanted to check in, but no one seemed to want to talk about the reason it happened in the first place. We sat in the courtyard, sharing a sandwich, pretending the world wasn't watching us through cafeteria windows. Ethan looked at me. "You know, I thought standing up for myself would feel better than this. What does it feel like?" He thought for a second. "Like breathing after being underwater too long." "It hurts, but it's still worth it," I nodded. "Yeah, maybe that's what freedom really is." He smiled faintly. "You always make it sound poetic." "Someone has to." The meeting with the principal was that afternoon. The office smelled like old coffee and polished wood. She sat behind her desk, hands folded, expression perfectly neutral. "Ethan," she began, "we reviewed the video. We understand the situation has escalated." "Escalated?" Ethan said, his voice calm but sharp. "You mean when someone attacked me and you suspended me?" The principal's jaw tightened. "There were previous concerns about your temper." He laughed quietly. "Guess I should have let them keep hitting me then." I could see where this was going, the same polite dismissal, the same excuses. So I spoke. "You can't keep pretending this isn't happening. You have students getting harassed every day, and you look the other way." Her gaze snapped toward me. "Mr. Parker, I don't think this tone—" "No," I said louder now. "You don't think this matters enough to take a side." The silence that followed was thick and dangerous. But Ethan didn't flinch. He just reached for my hand under the desk, a quiet gesture that said everything. After a long pause, the principal sighed. "We'll be addressing bullying in the next assembly. I assure you both we take this seriously. It wasn't enough, but it was something." When we walked out of the office, Ethan exhaled. "You just yelled at the principal." "Yeah," I said. "Guess I'm done hiding too." That Friday the assembly happened. The gym was packed. The whole school forced to listen. The principal gave a rehearsed speech about respect and tolerance, her words echoing off the bleachers. Then she said, "Two of our students have shown incredible courage this week. We'd like to give them a chance to speak." Every head turned toward us. Ethan froze beside me. "You've got to be kidding." "She's not," I said, standing up. We walked down the steps together, the sound of sneakers squeaking against the gym floor. My palms were sweating. My heart felt like it was going to break my ribs. The microphone felt heavier than it should have. I started first. "Some of you think what happened was about a fight. It wasn't. It was about being tired of pretending, tired of being silent." A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. I used to think if I stayed quiet long enough, people would forget I was different, I continued. But all that did was make me disappear. "And I'm done disappearing," I stepped back. Ethan hesitated for a moment before taking the mic. He looked out at everyone, the bullies, the bystanders, the few who actually looked guilty. "I came here hoping to start over," he said. "But starting over doesn't mean hiding who you are. It means surviving long enough to stop apologizing for it." His voice trembled just a little. "You don't have to like me. You don't even have to understand me. But you don't get to break me." When he handed the mic back, the room stayed silent for what felt like forever. Then someone clapped. Just one person at first, the art teacher in the corner. Then another, and another. Within seconds, the whole gym was filled with applause. Ethan turned to me, eyes wide. I squeezed his hand. "Told you," I whispered. "You win." After the assembly, things didn't magically become perfect. There were still stares, still whispers, but there was also respect. The bullies kept their distance. A few students even stopped us in the hall, just to say they liked what we said. One of them was Jake. He caught up to us after class, eyes down, voice awkward. "Hey, I wanted to say sorry for everything." Ethan crossed his arms. "Sorry doesn't erase what you did." "I know," Jake said. I get it now. My brother came out last year. I guess I didn't want to see what that meant." Ethan studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay," Jake blinked. "Okay?" "Yeah," Ethan said. "But don't mess it up again." Jake laughed softly, relieved, and walked away. When he was gone, I looked at Ethan. "You're too good for this place." He smiled. "Nah, I just finally stopped letting it own me." That night, we went back to the field one last time. The bleachers were empty, the air cool and still. He sat on the grass, guitar in his lap. "I didn't know you played," I said. He shrugged. "I don't, really. But I've been writing something." He started to play a slow, uneven melody, humming under his breath. Then he sang, "They said the world was too small for us, but here we are, still standing. They said love would break us, but look who's still breathing." The sound was soft, shaky, real. When he stopped, he looked at me with that same half-smile from the first day he sat beside me in class. "Guess that's our song now," he said. I leaned closer, resting my forehead against his. Guess so. And under the dim floodlights of an empty field, two boys, who were never supposed to be seen, finally stopped hiding. Graduation day arrived faster than I ever thought it would. Maybe because I'd stopped counting the days, or maybe because for once, I didn't want time to move any slower. The gym was transformed, rows of folding chairs, a stage draped in blue, the smell of cheap perfume and camera flashes. I watched the crowd file in from my seat, tassels swinging in my face. Parents waved, kids joked, and somewhere in all of that noise, I caught sight of Ethan standing near the back of the line. He looked calm, like the chaos around him didn't touch him anymore. When our eyes met, he smiled. That small, knowing smile that had changed everything. It felt unreal, thinking about how far we'd come since the first day he sat beside me. Back then, the thought of even being here had felt impossible. But somehow, through all the whispers, the fights, the fear and the heartbreak, we made it. The ceremony started. Names echoed through the mic one after another, followed by applause that blurred together. I tried to focus, but every time someone clapped, my chest tightened. Because for once, it wasn't just about finishing school, it was about surviving it. When Ethan's name was called, a murmur went through the crowd. People knew his story. Everyone did. He walked across the stage with quiet confidence, head high, shoulders squared. There were no cheers at first, just silence. Then someone in the front started clapping, then another, then the whole gym. The sound built like thunder. He paused halfway across, turning slightly, looking at me in the audience. Just a glance, a second, but enough for my heart to stop. When it was my turn, I walked across the stage too, and for the first time in my life, I didn't care who was watching. After the ceremony, the school lawn turned into a sea of hugs and camera flashes. Caps flew. Families laughed, everyone pretending for a few hours that the past 4 years hadn't been as cruel as they really were. Ethan found me near the bleachers, his gown half unzipped, diploma rolled in his hand. "You did it," he said. "We did it," I corrected. He grinned. "Fair enough." We walked toward the empty football field, our place, one last time. The grass was high now, the goalposts rusted, but it still felt like ours. He set his diploma down and sat cross-legged in the grass. "You ever think about what's next?" "All the time," I said. "College, maybe." "Somewhere far," he nodded. "Me too. Somewhere new." "Somewhere we're not just those guys," I laughed quietly. "You mean somewhere they don't know about the fight, the suspension, the intercom, and everything else?" He smiled. "Exactly." Then his expression softened. "But also somewhere they don't make us afraid to just be who we are." The wind picked up, tossing the tassel on his cap. "I don't think fear ever goes away," I said. "I think we just learn how to walk through it." He looked at me for a long time. "You really believe that?" "I have to." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded page, one of his sketches. It was me again, sitting at my desk the first week we met, looking out the window. At the bottom, in his messy handwriting, he'd written, "The boy who refused to disappear." I swallowed hard. "You kept this?" "I redrew it," he said. "The old one got torn up." I stared at the drawing, at the way he'd captured me with that same quiet focus he always had. "It's perfect." He shook his head. "Not yet. Needs one more thing." He pulled a pencil from his pocket, bent the paper over his knee, and added one line beneath it. "And the one who saw him." He handed it to me, his eyes shining with something unspoken. I took it carefully. "You know you just made me cry in a football field, right?" He smiled. "I'll take the credit." We stayed there until the sun started to set. The sky turned orange, then purple, then the kind of blue that feels like a goodbye. Ethan leaned back, watching the clouds drift above the bleachers. "You think we'll still know each other in 10 years?" "Ask me in 10 years, I said. He laughed, turning to look at me. "You know what I mean," I sighed, lying back beside him. "Yeah, I think we will." He hesitated, then said softly, "I don't want to lose this." "You won't," I said. "We built it. It's ours." He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "You always sound so sure." "Someone has to," I whispered. He smiled faintly. "Then promise me something." "What?" "When you leave here, wherever you go, don't start hiding again." Not for anyone, I won't, I said. But only if you promise the same. He nodded slowly. Deal. The silence that followed was comfortable this time. Not heavy, not fearful. Just peaceful. He reached over and took my hand, fingers brushing against the edges of his graduation ring. It fit perfectly between mine. You know, he said, I think you were the only thing that kept me here. I looked at him. Really looked. Then I guess we saved each other, he smiled. Yeah, I guess we did. The loudspeakers crackled from the parking lot, announcing the end of the event. People were leaving, cars honking, music starting somewhere down the road. Ethan stood, brushing grass off his gown.
Guess that's it, huh?
Guess so. He hesitated, then said, I'm leaving for college next week. Art program up north. My heart sank, even though I knew it was coming. That's amazing, he smiled. It'll only be a few hours away, close enough to visit. Good, I said. Because I'm not saying goodbye. He looked at me, sunlight glinting off his eyes. Then what is this? It's a see you later. He laughed, stepping closer. Then see me now. Before I could reply, he kissed me, soft, deliberate. The kind of kiss that feels like it's sealing something, not ending it. When we finally pulled away, he whispered, for the first time, I don't care who sees. And as the final bell echoed across the empty field, I realized that was the truth. We'd already been seen, and finally for who we really were. Sometimes love doesn't start with fireworks. Sometimes it starts with someone sitting beside you when no one else will, and stays when the world tells them not to. Would you have had the courage to love openly when it mattered most? If this story touched you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because stories like this one remind us that love, no matter where it begins, deserves to be seen.